And here's one other really amazing thing that he did was he even took blood cells, or well, white blood cells from somebody's cheek. And he had that person, well, he put them in a petri dish and he hooked them up to the polygraph just like he did everything else. And he had that person leave. And that person was driving to the airport, they had to catch a plane and go someplace. And he said to that person, every time you have some sort of emotional outburst where, you missed your turn or you're late for your flight or something happens, he says, write it down. And he wanted to see if there was some kind of communication going on between the person and their cells. And that's exactly what he found, because when he was looking at the time, when the person gave them the time references, those time references exactly measured up when the cells had those, the tracings, where there was some kind of reaction. And it happened even if the person was 300 miles away. This is really incredible stuff, and it's really amazing. One of the things that I want to say too is some of these experiments go back to the 1920s, actually even before that. But what I'm going to be talking now is about some experiment that was done back in the 20s by Alexander Gerbich, a German scientist. And what he did was he took 2 onion roots, because his notion was that what is causing life to, what causes us to grow? He felt that there was some underlying energy that was causing things to grow. And he wanted to prove that this energy could somehow be measured. So what he decided was, he goes, well, what I want to do is I want to take an onion and I want to see, if there's energy like shooting out the root, because it's probably causing the onion to grow. So he wanted to see if there's energy going out the root that's causing the onion to grow. So he pointed the root of one onion root, the end of one onion root, he pointed it at the side of another onion root. And when he was counting the cell divisions, he found there were a greater amount of cell divisions in the part of the onion root that the other one was pointing at. And his conclusion was, and at that time, this is back in the 20s, was that every living cell emits light, though at a very weak level. And what we've been finding out is that, what they're emitting is they're emitting light in the ultraviolet range, which we can't see with our eyes, but it's still light. And it's passing from one thing to the other. This is what's causing these things to grow. There must be some kind of information or some kind of energy that's going through there and causing this. He found that if you put glass in between, though, that it stopped. But if you put quartz glass in between, it would continue. And what glass does is it blocks UV rays. So that's why he was saying it must be in the UV spectrum that this is happening. Dr. Fritz Albert Popp, a German researcher in biophysics back in 1974, found, he started something that he called biophotons. And he found that there's about 100,000 processes going on in our cells every second. And he goes, how can that be happening? It can't be just chemical, because chemical reactions cannot happen that fast. He goes, even electrical impulses cannot happen that fast. It can only happen at the speed of light. And what he found was essentially that there was a communication going on in the cell, that there were photons going back and forth, carrying information, telling the cell what to do. And that was the only way that he could explain how the cells could be doing what they were doing that quickly, or and that much. And this is a quote from him, and this is very interesting because it goes back to when even biblical things saying that we're all beings of light. He says, we know today that man is essentially a being of light. And the modern science of photobiology is presently proving this. In terms of healing, the implications are immense. We now know, for example, that quanta of light can initiate or arrest cascade-like reactions in the cells, and the genetic cellular damage can be virtually repaired within hours by faint beams of light. We are still on the threshold of fully understanding the complex relationship between light and life, but we can now say emphatically that the function of our entire metabolism is dependent on light. And guys like this, like Fritz Albert Popp, and when we're going to be talking about next, Peter Garyaev, a lot of these Russian scientists, they're finding that there's information is being relayed on the light waves. And Fritz Albert Popp, he was discovering this stuff back in 1974. This comes up to another experiment from another Russian scientist whose name is Berlikov. And again, he wanted to see if there was any interaction, through any type of energy between fish eggs. And what he did was he took two groups of fish eggs that were at slightly different stages of development, but very close. And he separated them, and he put a filter in between. Well, he tried it with glass, and he tried it with quartz glass. And again, he found when he used glass that these types of things stopped. When he had the quartz glass, that it continued, showing again that there was an ultraviolet radiation that was causing these effects. And what you have here is when you have two sets of eggs that are very close in development, the older eggs, the younger eggs actually develop faster. There's some kind of energetic communication that's going on that helps bring the younger ones up to speed. But what he found is if the eggs were at too far apart in their stages of development, that the older eggs were actually sucking the energy from the younger ones, because the younger eggs would die, they would have deformities, they retard their growth. So what was very interesting about this is that even nature noticed this. This conforms to observations in nature where fish normally avoid laying their eggs in sites where other eggs have already been deposited. Fish innately know this. They don't even lay their eggs where other eggs are laid because they know it's going to affect theirs. So they don't do it. And nature knows this. We're just starting to figure it out. There was a book that came out in 2001 called Networked Intelligence. That is intelligent or networked intelligence, written by these two German authors. Unfortunately, it's only in German. Some of it there's English translations of, but right now there's only a German version of the book. But in this book, the German authors are talking about a lot of these Russian scientists who are discovering a lot of these amazing things when it comes to DNA, light, energy, and healing. And one of the people that they talk a lot about in the book is Peter Garyaev. Peter Garyaev has been doing these experiments, some of which have been documented back in 1985, but he's been doing this through the 80s and 90s. Obviously, this book came out in 2001, so it has all the stuff that he was doing before that time. But one of the things that he did was he took a control group of rats and he injected them with this here drug, aloxin, which it destroys the pancreas and creates diabetes. And then the rats would die in 4 to 6 days. He was doing experiments with what they call wave genetics, meaning that he believes that there's information in DNA and that it can actually be transferred to other DNA through beams of light. So what he did was, he took a second group of rats, and again he injected them with this poison, and at a critical moment, he took the pancreas of a baby rat, okay? A baby rat. He took that pancreas, and through waves of light, he transferred that information from the baby pancreas into the diseased rats, and the diseased rats got healthy, and they regenerated their pancreas.